This sounds great, John.
Did the baked potato make it through the crisis?
Say that again?
I said, did the baked potato, is it still open? Did it make
Yes.
it through?
Yes, I've been several times.
Okay.
All right, we won't sit through the whole thing, but we'll sit, you know, good girl for a minute. if I can tear myself away from the rest of the guys.
Monkey Bill Sharp.
He's incredible. Yeah. Wow, that was cool. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest, John Novello.
Thank you for having me on. It's my honor. Those are the pre-COVID days, huh?
Yeah. Yes, they were. Wow, that was really something.
Another low energy ballad, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah. That bass player looked familiar to me. Who is
Bill Sharp. You know Bill?
I don't know. He looked really familiar to me.
He plays with a lot of different other bands as his side gigs, Dave Koz and Kenny G and all these other type smooth jazz guys. He does a lot of those kind of things, but he's a really funky guy. Most of the time I use Melvin, but Melvin was away, and Bill's another funky cat, you know.
God, he's good. And the drummer, I don't know the drummer. He's amazing.
That's Ronald Bruner Jr. He's the closest guy that I've ever played with, other than, you know, from Dennis Chambers. Dennis Chambers is a mother. And Ronald Bruner Jr. was sort of discovered. It's actually, Ronald Bruner Jr. is Melvin Davis's, I think, uncle, and he referred Ronald to George Duke, bless his soul, and George Duke, Stanley Clarke band he was playing with for a long time, and then I found Ronald through Melvin Davis, the bass player. Monster chops.
That was just so good. I mean, it must be so much fun to be a soloist over the rhythm section.
Yeah.
It's great.
7-minute tunes back in the day, you know?
Yeah. No, you haven't been playing around, definitely LA for a while, right?
Well, no, I moved to Franklin, Tennessee, right outside of Nashville in August of last year.
Oh,
So I've only been here a year, and so I've jammed around a little bit here, but I sort of moved here to quasi-retire. Not that anybody will retire when you're a musician, but I knew it would take 6 months to a year to get the new house set up and oriented and start meeting people. The good thing was Billy Sheehan, my partner in Niacin, he already had moved here, so he hooked me up with a few people. But you know, nobody, when I came here, the COVID thing was still screaming and nobody was touring or doing anything. So it was a good time to get oriented, get the new house together and relax and chill. And I'm also an author and a music educator, so I was writing a couple books and stuff like that, which made more sense during this whole COVID thing. And now that people are starting to get back together, we'll see what happens, you know?
yeah. John and I go way back. Actually, we went to Berkeley at the same time, which was what was it, the 70s? Yeah, the mid 70s.
You were one of the many females, right?
Well, yeah, one of the 20 females at the most. Yeah.
I don't even think it was 20.
Yeah, there may not have been. Yeah, it's amazing that I learned anything with all those guys flirting, you know. But I did. I mean, the main thing that I picked up at Berkeley, I think one of the main things was a sense of community, my own community, because I had come from my dad's community because he was a musician in Boston. But you know, my own sense of community and what I was listening to and all, you know, playing too, because I played flute. I wasn't a singer. I mean, I was a singer, but Berkeley didn't have singing until I left.
Yeah, right.
But you used to work in the combat zone.
Do we have to bring that up?
Yes, that was, I mean, I think that's such a colorful part of your past, you know?
Well, the good thing about that is, you know, they always say God works in mysterious ways. So here I am at Berkeley, and I went for the summer session to check it out with a couple of the musicians to see if I liked it, and I loved it. Money was tight in those days, and I had worked at a factory in Erie, Pennsylvania that my father worked at just to save money for tuition and rent. And after about 4 months there, I was getting broke, and my mom was sending me care packages of Italian food and provolone and pepperoni and Kraft dinner, and I was having pizzas, and money was running out. And I saw a little index card. Berkeley, if you remember, had the little bulletin board, right?
Yeah.
And it said, of all things, it said strip club organist wanted. And I had never even been in a strip club. That's how, you know, naive and where I was. And so the organist part is what got me. I went, organist, I think that's me. And there was hardly any organists in those days. I mean, there was a lot of piano players and people playing roads, but not many people that really knew their way around the B3, at least going to school at that time. Yeah. So I thought, okay. And it said, be at the 2 o'clock club. So I called this Russian guy up, Vladimir, and he goes, first of all, I want to know if you're an organist or if you're going to be another one of these keyboard players, because all these clubs down here have B3 as a drummer. And on the weekends, when the budget permits, we have a horn player. So you have to play bass either with your left hand or play pedals or both, right? And I said, well, I can do the left hand thing, but I've always been in a band. I don't really have a good command of the pedals. He goes, well, if you're a B3 player and have that sound, it still might work. And I didn't even know a lot of jazz tunes then. I was more of a funk R&B blues player. I went to Boston for that. And I got on the list of Charlie Banacas, who was the guy to study with as far as bebop jazz. But he had a waiting list of 7 months. And so I was studying with the various cats in those days, Gary Burton, Ray Santisi, Herb Pomeroy, and all these guys. So I saw that. So I went down to audition, and I'm thinking in my head, stupidly, well, strip club organist, how hard could this be? You know what I mean? So other than learning the tunes. So I show up and I walk in the front door and it's completely packed. It's like a speakeasy and the girls are dancing on the bar and the guy says, go way in the back behind the curtain and you'll see me playing and you can relieve the other B3 player. Scooped up here. Yeah, you can relieve the other B3 player when the next girl comes up because each girl had 4 songs, right? So I walk in the back and as I get closer, this B3 player is killing me. It's so amazing. I'm going, I can't believe it. I'm in a little dive by the wharfs in Boston, and this player is so amazing, and probably nobody has ever heard of him. So I go back, and I'm sitting there, and I'm watching him, and there's all these girls walking around with their gear half off and everything. I'm not even paying attention to him because I'm watching this guy. He's playing heel toe with his feet and comping with his left hand and doing all these independent things and blowing. In my mind, I'm going, there's no way I'm going to follow this guy. So it was a moment of truth. I was thinking that maybe I should just get up and leave because he doesn't know who I am, the drummer. But I'm the only guy in the back seat behind the curtains. And I'm going, So right at the moment where I was thinking I should kind of bolt, he looks over, he's playing, and he looks down at me because the stage was high, gets his stick and he goes, are you Novello? And I'm like, yeah, you know, it was like that moment of truth where I could have denied myself. He goes, Gary, this guy's going to sit in for you for a set. We're you know, as we know, we're auditioning. And Gary looks at me, he goes, oh, great, man, I need a break. And I'm thinking, please walk out the door and don't listen to me because he was so good, you know? So he gets off the stage and he walks out the front door. I jump on the B3. I only got a minute because the show is constantly, right? And he looks at me, he goes, okay, the girl's going to come up. She's going to hand me a napkin and it's going to have her tunes on there. If you don't know the tunes, don't worry about it for now. Just play something similar. If it's a Latin tune or a swing or a ballad. And I said, okay. And I didn't really know a lot of jazz tunes. And the first tune that the girl called, it was this black girl. Her name was Angel or something. And she calls Shiny Stockings, which I know now, but I didn't know. So I look at him and I said, well, I think that's a swing tune. She's walking up, you know, on stage. He goes, yeah, play any swing. So I think I played Autumn Leaves and she was starting to walk out, you know, past the curtain. She comes back and she's furious. That's not my song. And who's this new guy? And the drummer yelled at her. He goes, just go on. We're auditioning players. Don't worry about the tunes. And they're in an argument. And I'm like trying to play during all this heated tension. And I'm sweating because I want the job. I'm broke. So I get through Autumn Leaves. And it's not as full as sound as Gary because Gary was playing pedals, you know?
Yeah.
I got everything going against me. She comes back and she goes, you better know the second tune. The second tune was Look of Love. And I happened to know that. So I did a halfway decent job. And then the third song I didn't know again. And she's screaming and yelling. So she got to realize this is a strip club. So these girls are taking their bloody clothes off on top of it. So I'm sitting there going, God, where am I? This is crazy. There's eye candy that I can't even enjoy. I'm too tensed out with the tunes and needing to get this gig. So luckily, the fourth song was her name, Angel Eyes. And I knew Angel Eyes. That's a blues, you know. And I could play that because I was a blues player. So I played the heck. I figured you're only as good as your last hit. So if I can play Angel Eyes good and satisfy her, maybe she won't be so hard on me and I can get the gig. So I played the heck out of Angel Eyes. She loved it. She goes, her last words she goes, man, that was the bluesiest Angel Eyes I've ever heard for a white boy. I can't believe it. So I was done. Gary comes up and Vladimir goes, call me tomorrow. So I call him the next day and he goes, well, let me tell you the bad points is you don't play pedals, so your sound is not that full, but you could study from Gary. You'll be playing every night if you take this gig. He goes, and you don't know a lot of tunes. So let's meet and I'll give you a list of 60 standards that you need to learn in 2 weeks. And that was actually a good thing. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like almost part of going to school, right?
Yeah.
And then I went and got with Gary and he showed me a few things on the pedals. We became friends and I started playing 2 weeks. And I had that gig for a year and a half. And the hilarious part is I was there with a lot of guys that went on to do good things. Vinnie Caliuta was there, Steve Smith was there, a couple other drummers, Neil Steubenhaus was there. So there was a lot of guys in that class. And so when my one drummer, when Vladimir couldn't make it, sometimes I got Vinny to play, sometimes I got Steve. So we were all nobodies playing in the zone until we all, branched out. And I must say, between that and then eventually Charlie Banacas called me 6 months later, between Charlie's bebop lessons and playing standards every single night of the week for 4 hours, I probably learned just as much doing that I did in Berkeley.
Oh yeah. Yeah. My God, see unbelievable. That's an unbelievable chunk of past,
Yeah. Who would have ever figured? And I found out later that even Jan Hammer played down there.
Oh my God.
How crazy is that? And then eventually,
really crazy.
when disco came in,
Yeah.
they started replacing the law. There was 7 strip clubs, and it was great because they put 7 bands and all these players to work. But then they started replacing the bands slowly but surely. But that was just about the time where I moved out of Boston to go to LA.
Oh.
And then who would have figured that I end up in 2 disco bands? I end up being the musical director for Taste of Honey. Remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Boogie Oogie Oogie. And I didn't even like that song, but I'm asking God, like, hey, I just went to Berkeley to study all kinds of stuff, and you got me playing a 3-chord disco tune that I could have played before I went to Berkeley. But they went on to be #1 hit in the world, and I got to tour all over and meet all kinds of people. And eventually I met Donna Summer, went to her band, and I met Al Jarreau and all these different people. So that ended up funny. The strip club turned into disco music, turned into meeting all these people, and then I started my own band and teaching while I was in LA.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Hold on. I have to turn on the fan. I'm
Sure.
getting hot in here. I'm getting excited, probably, just by the conversation. I remember that. Gosh, it's just been so long since we really talked about stuff and hung out. But yeah, Taste of Honey and Donna Summers, and yeah, really cool.
Well, I made enough money that I could then start working on my own music, and then I, taught 10 or 15 students a week. Remember the old Music Connection? Put up a little ad.
Yeah, and your book. When did you write your book? Because that was a long.
Well, I got out there in '78, and then I started touring with those people, and then I started teaching, and all of a sudden one day I kind of went, I'm always writing all these things out by hand and Xeroxing all these exercises. Maybe I should write a book. And I started an outline in 1983. And it took me 3.5 years. This was the first book I ever wrote to finish the book. And then I couldn't, it was a huge tome with 551 pages, and nobody would pick it up because it was too big and too expensive. So I literally put it out myself, and I sent the rough galleys to Keyboard Magazine. And I forget the guy that was the head there. He might come to me in a minute, but he reviewed the book, and we put down the price and the address. And it was funny, about 5 days after he reviewed the book, I started getting checks from all over the world.
Wow.
That allowed me to finish. The book wasn't even done, just the rough galleys. And so the money that came in, I finished the book, put it out myself. I printed up 2,000 copies in about 1.5 years. I sold all those. And then, of course, those publishing companies are now interested because track record. I kind of went, oh yeah, where were you when I needed you, So then I got a deal on Hal Leonard, and they publish all my educational stuff now.
Wow. That's amazing.
Do it yourself kind of program,
Yeah. One question I wanted to ask, Gary who was the B3 player?
Oh, Gary Peterson. Of course, he would have a name like Peterson, who's a monster. And I still am friends with him. And he's from Minnesota. He never went on in the real world to do anything, which I couldn't figure out. But he went on, he was doing jazz cruises all over the world.
Wow.
Making his money playing. And I wanted to produce a record on him once, but it never happened because he's such an amazing, you name me any B3 player, I don't care if Joey DeFrancesco, Jimmy Smith, McDuff, all those guys. This guy is the unsung amazing hero, because none of those guys I mentioned could play fast, heel toe, crossed feet and everything. Even Joey DeFrancesco plays left-hand bass and he hits the pedals a little bit here and there, so did Jimmy Smith. But this guy, 3 levels of independence, heel toe, boom, 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 with the feet, comping with his left hand and blowing block chords and soloing. I've never heard anybody since.
Wow. Interesting.
He never got going.
Yeah, that's very cool. So let's see. There was something else I wanted to go to, but anyway, we'll just meander on. So yeah, and I am curious. You mentioned you were from Pennsylvania, right?
Erie, Pennsylvania. Yeah, we call it dreary Erie.
Were you playing like obviously you were playing B3 before you got to Boston. So what did you have, was your family like obviously supportive? Because your kid doesn't play B3 unless you're supportive.
Well, my dad was a guitar player, ear player, but he worked at a regular factory, and I started off on accordion. The old Italian Catholic family. Yeah. Started playing accordion and playing all the Italian tunes, and then one day I saw the Doors, I think, and he had a Farfisa, and I begged my mom, and I didn't even know what a B3 was yet, and begged my mom to get a Farfisa so then I could start getting in some local bands. And I got in a local band after I got that. And I remember I was one of the few guys around that knew every note from the Light My Fire. And I learned the whole thing. And, But then I started noticing the sound was different on these other bands, because all the soul bands had B3 players. And Steppenwolf. And then I got turned on to Brian Auger, and then I got turned on to ELP and Genesis and Yes, and all these guys had B3s. And so I saved up some money and found a used B3, and my parents put some money in, got my first B3, which I still have in my studio, the first one. I have another one too.
Oh, I think I saw that the last time I was over your house.
Probably did.
Showed me that. Yeah.
2 B3s. Yeah, one was a cut down and one was a real with still the wooden cabinet. And once I got the B3, I got way in more demand, because there was only 3 B3 players in the whole of Erie, Pennsylvania.
Oh my God.
And I was one of them. And the thing that started launching the whole music career is I was playing at the Holiday Inn. I had probably the best cover band. And we played Tower Power and Earth, Wind and Fire and all the soul songs and all these great songs. And we played for all the fraternities. We were at the Ramada Inn, and Erie is like a snow belt, like Buffalo. And it was snowing and blizzard, and I was at the Ramada Inn. The last set, the owner comes up, the manager, and says, if nobody comes in, I'm going to send you home early. We're about ready to stop, and all of a sudden, like a party of 10 came in. He goes, John, you got to play. So I said, okay, who cared about, I wanted to play. So we played, and little did we know, and now I'm showing my age, is that a famous producer who was on his way from New York to Cleveland had to pass through Erie. And the blizzard was so bad, he pulled off Interstate 90 and went to where else? The Ramada Inn. So he walked in the door, checked in. He was kind of wired and he didn't want to go to sleep. So he came down to get a drink, sat in the bar, and he heard my band. And we had this incredible singer who we used to call the White James Brown, because he danced like James Brown. He had a lot of soul. So I don't know he's in the audience, and we're playing. So we're done. And it wasn't a pack up night, because we still had more nights to play. And I walked off the stage, and this guy comes up. He goes, you look like you're the leader. Can I talk to you? And I said, sure. And I thought it was another drunk when I asked him to play Misty or something, right? And he goes, you may or may not know me. I'll introduce my name later, but I just have one question for you. Are you guys signed? I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't know what that he meant to a record deal. And I said, I don't think so, but I don't know what you mean. He goes, I mean to a record deal. I said, no, we're just a local. He goes, well, you are now. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, I really like your sound. You got a unique thing. You got a white James Brown type singer, and you guys are funky, and the arrangements are really good. He goes, my name's Roger Karshner. I'm the producer of The Outsiders. Remember The Outsiders, Time Won't Let Me?
Yeah.
And they had a huge hit, Time Won't Let Me, all that stuff. And he lived in Cleveland, 90 miles away. And they were on MGM Records, and he had his own label called Mainline. So 3 weeks later, we got a contract in the mail. I was over 18 and parents didn't even know anything about attorney. So we signed it. It was probably the worst deal in the world, but who cared? Next thing you know, we do a single. In those days, you did a single first and released it in the area. And if it went, then you went on to, do a full record. And they released this single, and on side A was an original tune that he wrote. And side B, we covered Out of Sight by James Brown. And the thing shot up the charts. It went to #3 in the tri-state area of New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. And we were starting to play all these TV shows. And it was one of those things where I didn't ever think that making it was hard. It was just easy, right?
Yeah.
So little do I know, the rug's about to be pulled out from under me. So Roger says, hey man, the record's good. We've decided we're going to do an album. And I think you guys are going to be a national hit. And we start to drive up from Erie to Cleveland. And what do you think happens? The singer gets drafted.
Oh, God.
That was the days where it was really hard to get out unless you snuck away to Canada or something.
Yeah.
And he was scared. And so he joined the, the National Guard. And we lost our singer and the record company dropped us. And I was depressed for 3 months. But, again, sometimes crises open up other doors.
Yeah.
So I put a trio together. It's funny, it was sort of the archetype of my band now with Dennis Chambers and Billy Sheehan called Niacin. I put an organ instrumental trio together because I was studying lessons. This is still in Erie. And like an ELP type thing, only with no vocal. And we started to become really popular, but not commercial anymore. But I didn't care. My commercial thing fizzled out and I didn't even care anymore. And then played all around town. And then eventually I said, I think I really want to get really trained and really become a versatile, good musician. And then my research led me to Boston, and you know the rest.
Wow. Interesting.
So I did play locally, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. It's one reason I love this show, because I get, you talk to people and you get the stories. And like one guy, David Amram, who's 92 and has 12 projects going on. And he's in New York, and he said, I got a degree in hangology. Like in the old days, he was the French horn player on all the old bebop records.
Wow.
One day he was hanging in New York with Charlie Parker, and Mingus came by. It was in the club, and Parker said, "This is the guy to have on French horn." And Mingus said, "Oh, you want to come on the road to Europe with us?" And
wow.
Things like that, But I mean, that's just one example. But I mean, everybody basically goes straight ahead and does their thing, and they're clear enough to observe what's happening, and go with it. And it certainly sounds like that happened to you.
Yeah, I think if you're lucky to be born with certain gifts, and I think everybody, to be honest with you, has different gifts in different areas. They don't have to be music or acting or athletic. It could be anything. I think the biggest sin in the world is to not develop those, because I think they're God-given. And so I've always had the awareness to realize that, okay, this is a gift. And I had a really good family and my good mindset with both of my parents, and they instilled that kind of work ethic and discipline in me. So I always practiced and studied and always had that drive where a rejection didn't last long with me. It actually motivated me to go, oh, all right, you took my singer. Well, now that I'm over my depression, I'm going to put this together and I'm going to do this. And, from being in the music industry yourself, that 2 rejections is nothing. It's like 30 and 40 and 50. It just goes on and on forever,
Luckily, we're not actors, because in fact, I tried a little acting for a while and I thought, oh, this kind of sucks, man. You're always getting turned down, always. And also you have to waitress forever before you're actually making a living. At least singing, you can dig up a gig or,
Yeah, I got on a soap once by accident. I was the musical director for this girl named Patty Weaver, who was signed with Warner Brothers, but she was on The Young and Restless, and her name was Gina. And of course, I didn't know anything about soap operas, but through a referral, I got a call from She goes, hi, my name is Patty Weeder. I'm signed with Warner Brothers, and I do play around here and there, but mostly I'm an actress, a main principal actress on Young and Restless. They want me to start singing on the show. So I have a choice. I can either get somebody who probably can't play at all, but who's got acting experience, or find a musician who I really like to accompany me and hope that he can at least act good enough to pass the audition, or find somebody who does both. She goes, that's almost impossible. I've been looking. So I heard that, blah, blah, blah. So I went to her house, and she lived in Malibu Colony. She liked the way I played. She goes, well, now you're going to have to pass the audition. So I had to go to CBS Television City down there in West Hollywood. And I walk in the door, and the girls, and I send my CD, my as far as my music reel. So I walked in, and the girl says, well, you certainly can play. That's not a problem. The producer is in the other room. He's on a phone call. When he's done, I'm going to send you in, and he's probably going to, do whatever he does. And Gina, Patty, she goes, he might give you a script, and he might do a cold reading. He might ask you about your background. You're on your own, kid, right? And I got a little bit of butterflies, but on the other hand, I didn't really care if I got this goofy acting gig. I didn't care,
Right.
It wasn't like Sting calling me up to audition to play in a $10,000 a week band that I really want, although this paid good money. So I walked in the door, I sat down, he's still on the phone. And he goes, I'll be right with you. And, it's the typical big, huge wooden desk. You feel intimidated, this Hollywood TV producer, and he's on the phone. He's got a cigar, and I'm the little guy on the other end of the desk, sitting there for 10 minutes. And he finally looks at me. He hangs up. He goes, sorry. He said, Patty really likes you. But can you act? And do you have any acting experience? And this was one of those moment of truths, right? The only thing I ever did in my whole life was in college. I tried out for a part, and I didn't get it. So I said, I made it up. Talk about jazz improv. I said, oh yeah, in college I used to do all kinds of stuff, but it wasn't my calling. He goes, oh, well, that's fine. Good kid, you got the gig. Go out there, I'll tell him. And I walk out and I tell the girl, she goes, wow, that was quick. She said, he asked me a question, I answered it, and I got the gig. And the very next day, the script gets sent to my house. And I don't know anything about acting, but how hard is it to play yourself? I'm playing really a pianist in a jazz club. So it worked out for a year and a half. I once or twice.
Wow.
But like you said, I hated it. I had to get up at 5 a.m, drive through traffic, sit in a dressing room until they called your name. And I was there all day just to shoot 2 or 3 minutes scene. And I did not like it. So after about a year and a half, she wasn't going to sing anymore. So they let me go.
Oh.
I was getting fan mail and everything from chicks all over the country. It was hysterical. And Gloria, you remember Gloria, my late wife.
Yeah,
Gloria,
John's wife. Yeah.
And she was a great singer, and she was doing acting, doing things. And she was mad because she goes, I can't believe it. You're not even an actor, and you're not even wanting to be an actor. Here you got this high-paying gig. They used to pay me $800 every time I went down there, $800 to $1,000. She goes, you got this acting gig, and you don't even want it. And here I am going out on all these auditions, and I don't know,
That's just how life is, man.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, you played with so many people too over the years. Like, let's see, I'm just reading off your bio. Donna and Manhattan Transfer. I didn't know you played with them. Ramsay Lewis.
That was a great gig at the. Did a short tour with Ramsey.
Oh, cool.
It was crazy because obviously he's a pianist, and
yeah,
he did a record on Columbia, and he was coming to LA. And the record company wanted his new, more commercial record to sound like the record, because he went out with a skeleton crew, just piano, guitar, bass, and drums. But there was all kinds of overdubs, like Fender Rhodes and whirly sounds and synth sounds and strings. So I got a call through Ron Moss when he was managing Chick Corea. He said, hey, this gig is opening up. There's no charts. It's with Ramsay Lewis. They need a second keyboard player to play all the parts on the record, Rhodes and synth and everything. And Ramsey was one of my favorite cats. And I just said, yeah, with no charts. I had 3 days, and they messengered over the CD. So I had to listen to everything and record copy and write down all these parts. And it's harder to play parts for me than to be in the rhythm section.
Yeah.
You gotta learn, but I did it. And I played at the Lighthouse for a week and then did the short little gigs and stints with him. And it was one of the greatest gigs in my life. One of the things I learned with Ramsey is he's a feel guy and he's a dynamic guy. He used to control the band, like remember the band Stuff too?
Yeah. Yeah.
With Steve Gadd, they used to be able to play a triple P and still cook. And Ramsey, if you got too loud, he'd go and he would control the band. And that was the first time I understood band dynamics from playing with Ramsay Lewis. And he was such a pocket player. So that was a great gig.
Yeah. That's cool. Okay. Edgar Winter.
Yeah, he's still probably one of he and Stevie Wonder, I think, Stevie Wonder are probably the two most talented people that I've ever had the experience to know and hang and jam with, because Edgar does everything. He plays every instrument. He writes amazing lyrics, and of course he sings. And we did a short little tour with Edgar. I had to put the band together for him, and it was Jamie Glazer on guitar.
Wow.
And I think Mike Jokum played drums. I haven't seen him in a long time.
Yeah.
Can't remember who played bass. But anyway, that was really great working with him because he's legally blind, although he can see his way around. But he has no charts and he's such an ear guy and he can scat and sing everything. So he goes around to all the musicians and he scats what it is. No, that's not right. Kicks me off the B3, plays the party once, and then he lets me sit down, grabs the drums. I mean, he had to have it a certain way, but he was a genius.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he's still in LA. I haven't talked to him in a long time.
I remember him coming to sit in on Cowger's jam session. Remember that?
Yeah.
Years ago. And yeah, I remember that. And I was really, I was surprised that he actually played jazz too.
Oh man, he plays great bebop horn and he can play. He can really play.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to follow up on him and see what he's doing now.
Yeah.
And you played for Ritchie Cole.
That was the scariest gig of my life because I don't consider myself, even to this day, a hard bebop player, right? Yeah. That wasn't really my interest or thing, but I went to Berkeley so I could get some command of it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did. I was on a Manhattan Transfer recording session at Capitol B Studios, I think, and Ritchie Cole was on the date. And I knew of Ritchie Cole. They used to call him the the second Charlie Parker, because that's how good he was. And on break time, he came up to me. He said, "Man, I really like the way you play. You bring a different thing to the jazz thing." I said, "That's because I don't play good jazz." That's what I told. He goes, "No," he goes, "don't ever say that about yourself. Jazz is whatever you create. Don't try to pigeonhole yourself to play a certain way." He goes, "Listen, on the weekend, I'm playing at, what's that club that used to be on Van Nuys? Right now it's a restaurant, Carmelo's or
Carmelo's, yeah.
Carmelo's. I think it's Oliva Italian restaurant." He goes, "I'm playing Friday and Saturday, and Ross Tompkins can't play the gig." Ross Tompkins, I love. He knows every jazz standard in every key.
Yes.
And can play, and he's tasty. Played with Johnny Carson for years, so of course. Yeah. So I tried to back out with Ritchie. I said, "Ritchie, I don't know all your tunes, and I'm really not that type of a guy." He goes, "That's why I want you. I want some new blood to interact with." And Bob Magnuson was on bass, and what's the other drummer that used to play with Bob?
What's a
local
not Paul Krybig, right? Let's see.
He used to teach at GIT to Humphreys.
Ralph Humphrey.
Ralph Humphrey.
Yeah.
And then Bruce, the guitar player, Bruce. Is it Bruce Johnstone or Bruce? Can't remember.
Yeah.
Great. He lives up in the Bay Area, but great. So I said, "Wow, great players. I know them all." He goes, "You're doing the gig." So he hands me his book. And I go, "Oh, if you got charts, that's halfway. At least I got a fighting chance, right? Because if you're going to call tunes, I'm not that Russ Tompkins guy." So I go home and Midnight Oil, I just learned every chart. And some of them were ridiculously hard, especially these fast bebop tunes, right? Some were covers and standards, some were original. So I get to the gig a little early, and I'm on stage, and Bob Magnuson walks in to set up his upright. He goes, "John, I didn't know you were playing tonight." I said, "Well, I didn't either. I just met Ritchie." And he goes, "Oh, it'll be fun to play with you, man." And I said, you know what tunes I showed him the book. I said, you know what tunes out of this book he's doing? He goes, all the years I've been with him, he never uses that book. He gave you that book. He goes, he's blowing you up.
Oh,
He just calls tunes and I always follow Russ.
oh God.
I got so scared. I said, oh, so you're going to follow me and I don't know half of these tunes that he's going to play. So Ritchie comes in. He goes, you ready, Novello? I said, Ritchie, no. Bob just told me you're not going to play. He goes, don't worry about it. There's no wrong notes, Miles. There's no wrong notes. So I'm sweating bullets. The place is packed, totally packed. I'm out of my element, fish out of water, in my mind. So the first tune he comes, ladies and gentlemen, and we were on the stage, ladies and gentlemen, from Trenton, New Jersey, the incredible Ritchie Cole. And he walks up on stage and he goes, and he starts playing rubato, a cappella bop stuff. I don't know what tune this is. I turned around to Bob. I said, you know what tune? He goes, no, we never know what tune it is when he does that stuff out front. He goes, he'll eventually play the melody intro and you come in. And I'm like going, God, if I don't know this tune, I'm screwed. So after he does about 2 minutes, he goes, boo, 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 bee. And I recognize the tune, but I don't even know what key it's in. So I got my ear down and I'm playing chords and trying to get through the tune. And I got through the tune. And luckily, he didn't give me a solo. So we get done with the tune and Ritchie turns around. I thought he was going to say, you're fired. He turns around to me and leans over and he goes, man, those are some wicked chord subs. I said, you mean wrong chords? I'm just making up progressions like sharp 4, 5, 7, 2, 3, 6, 2. But he loved it. And I'm not tone deaf, so I am playing stuff that works. But later on, I figured out so he loved it. So we did 2 nights there, 4 shows, and then he went on a short college tour and he took me with him. And that's how I got that gig. And that was another learning lesson, What can you say?
It's so great, isn't it? Just so great.
Well, the lesson on that gig was there is no such thing as stage fright. There's no such thing as wrong notes. Just play.
Yeah.
Relax. Don't try to be perfect and know everything you're going to do before you do it. Just blow. And that's what he taught me. In fact, we were at the University of San Diego. I had never played solo piano in front of a crowd. And it was intermission time. We get done. Yeah. Intermission's done. And he goes, all right, Novello, go up and play 10 minutes solo piano. We're all going to go up and do solos. I goes, play what? He goes, anything you want. And it was another one of those moment of truth. So I just went out there and blew, I didn't even play a tune. I was just blowing. He loved it. So that was a great lesson. You can't put a price tag on that,
Yeah. This week I was lucky enough to host a veteran jazz singer named Jay Clayton. I don't know if you know her name, but she was one of the few people responsible for actually making lofts happen in New York. She just turned 80. She came out here to, have like an 80-year-old birthday tour. Amazing person. And we set up a brunch gig for her at Vitello's with Bill Cunliffe and John Leftwich and a beautiful drummer Tina Raymond and Kim Richmond. But the cool thing about Jay is she's totally experienced. She knows what she wants. It's very natural. She's very open and inviting with the band, but she still directs it, but she knows she is open. Like if you play a certain way, that's fine. And it just, and the way she sings, like she'll sing standards, but she also sings free and she uses a loop station, which she's used for a long time, but her range is incredible and she goes all over the place, but she's done it for so long. It sounds absolutely great. And I heard so many sighs in the audience, like, oh yeah, and laughs and it's kind of like what you were saying. It's natural. It's just what's supposed to happen. It's such a great lesson for anyone in the audience. You don't have to be a musician. You can really absorb that. Come on, let's just do this and, move forward, have fun, and then create. And that actually is real perfection, It's so great.
It's like an actress or an actor that has to, I remember Bobby Lyons, Gloria
Yeah.
was in Bobby Lyons' class, and I went to pick up Gloria, and I got there early, and he was making all the actors completely improvise lines. And so whoever was up next, he'd give them a scenario. You just came home and your husband is drunk and he does X, Y, Z. So go ahead, make something up. And they'd have to improv, which is just like blowing, you know, that's really what it is. Some actors and actresses where their tongues were tied. Well, what do you mean? And some of them just went right to town and had a good time. You know?
Hey, let's play something. I'm gonna go share. I'm gonna go share like whoops, where am I? Here we go. Share like YouTube again, and oh, and the first thing we came on with that was done in 2000. Was that done in 2009? Yeah, 2009.
Yeah. Hold on, I gotta plug something in my computer. My battery's low.
Okay, actually, I'm going to type in niacin because that's a pretty long-term big band for you for a long time, and it's still you're still playing together, right? Whenever it comes
As a
up.
matter of fact, I'm going to be playing with them January 31st for my wife's celebration of life here in town.
Yeah.
Hold on a minute, I lost you. Can you see me?
I still have you, so.
I have to find you. I plugged something in and I tripped on something here. Where the heck is it?
Now it's going to be small. Here, let me make you bigger, so maybe that'll help.
I don't know why I just lost the tab. You can see me, it's fine, but I can't.
Yeah, now it's not a tab, it's a separate window.
No, I know.
Okay.
And I'm just seeing where this window is.
Yeah.
I plugged it in. Here we go. There we go. Okay, I'm back.
Okay. So now here I am sharing the screen on YouTube. What do you suggest for niacin?
That one right there, let me see, with Dennis on the front, that's live at the Blue Note. And let me see what tune that is. Click on that first one that shows Dennis Chambers, the third one down.
This one, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
So you want to tell us a little bit about this?
This is at the Blue Note. I think we had just got together. And this is a tune I wrote. It's a weird name. Billy named it Claghorn, Klaghorn, which means nothing. It's just a word. And he had this weird riff. The riff was boom, boom, it's like a little blues riff. And we used to write together like that. He'd come in with a little blues riff, and then I'd write a whole song off of that riff, that theme.
Yeah.
And this was a tune that we used to feature Dennis Chambers, who's, one of the monsters of feel and chops ever to walk this planet. So we used to let Dennis loose in the middle. And so this is live at the Blue Note in Japan.
Okay, cool.
The video is actually better quality than this, but I think your Wi-Fi is a little slow as well.
The Wi-Fi is a little slow, yeah.
Yeah, it's still playing though. It's fine.
Okay.
That's the riff that he gave me, and then I wrote this new tune around. Now we give it up to Dennis. Too bad the video's not tracking the sync.
Oh. On my end, it is. It might just be on your end. I don't know.
Well, no, the video plays perfectly on YouTube. I played it a million times. Don't know why. Weird. Because it's got a delay in it, you know.
Well, on my end, it's fine. So maybe
Is it? Oh,
I'm
okay, good.
translating. Yeah, so I might be translating it to Facebook and YouTube. Fine.
Probably Zoom that's got a delay in it. So he's totally in sync on your end?
On my end, it is. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, so he lives in Baltimore. He's coming to town in January. We're going to have a 2-hour celebration of life event,
Yeah.
and Niacin's going to headline it, and then my funk band will play a couple tunes, and then there's some other duets and various performances in her honor.
Yeah. That'll be great.
Solo is sick. Yeah, I was looking at the video on my phone and it's fine, so that just means you're transmitting to me through Zoom. Zoom is behind. So,
Yeah. It comes across different on everybody's, I think.
yeah. So if you want, you can, fade it out. Up to you.
Say that again.
I said if you want to fade the sound out,
Okay.
you don't have to
Okay.
watch the whole thing. That was the main thing.
Yeah. That's great. So, yeah, Dennis Chambers, man. Really great. And Billy Sheehan, he's another interesting guy. I mean, of course, because of what he's known for, you just don't think he's, funk, jazz, whatever. But he's really agile too, isn't he?
Yeah, he's mostly a progressive rock player, and that's his chops. But that's what gives Niacin its signature sound, because Dennis and I can come from jazz and funk and R&B, and Billy's more rock, fusion, progressive stuff. And so he brings that element. Like if I had Marcus Miller or some other funky bass player, it would sound great, but it would be a different band, you know?
Yeah, yeah. How did that band actually come to fruition?
Well, Gloria was one of the top vocal instructors in town.
Yeah.
And Mr. Big was Billy Sheehan's band, rock band, with Eric Martin was the singer. And he had seen an ad in a Music Connection ad about Gloria Rush teaching vocal lessons, and he just decided to call her. So he came over to the house one day and started studying with her. He liked her. So then the whole band, Mr. Big, started studying with Gloria. And then she had mentioned to him who I was and that I was a B3 player. So about 8 months later, Billy calls me up, and he knew me by then because we hung out. He said, "Hey, Bass Player Magazine, remember BIT, that keyboard magazine, guitar? Bass Player Magazine just gave me $3,000 because he was a celebrity kind of guy to do to do a track. Remember in those magazines in the old days, you used to have the little rubber plastic inserts?
Yeah, yeah.
They said they want me to do a track, and they contacted all the well-known bass players to do it. And most of the bass players are doing power guitar trios, like Satriani type things. And he goes, I want to do a power B3 trio. The only power B3 trio on the planet that I know of is ELP, but they're not instrumental. They're vocals too. He goes, let's write a tune. It'd be a good chance for you and I to play together. So we wrote a tune. We named it Niacin and put it out there, and everybody loved it. And I sent it to Chick and that tune, and he liked that it was a new concept, and he signed us to Stretch Records, his first label, which was a subsidiary of what's the main label?
Yeah.
You know who I mean, Glenn Barris's label.
I forget. Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, and that's how.
Was Dennis in it by then?
No, Dennis was. That's a good question. We used Pat Torpey, the drummer, rest his soul, because he passed away a few years ago. Billy Sheehan's drummer, we used, but he didn't like the fact that that's 2/3 of Mr. Big. And when we did so good with the record, with that record, he said, hey man, let's continue the project. Let's write some more tunes. So we wrote a bunch of tunes. And then he said, we need a drummer that's not my drummer from my Mr. Big. And I said, well, I don't know if you know this guy, but about a year ago, I saw this guy play with the Mike Stern, Bob Byrd band out in Santa Monica. What was that place? At My Place? Remember that place?
Yes, I do.
And it was rest his soul, Bob Byrd. What a great tenor player. But
yeah,
I asked him a little while ago. He was like Coltrane incarnated.
Yeah, great.
I went out there to see a set because somebody told me there was this drummer that's killing it. So I went out for the final show and I saw Dennis Chambers. And in my head, I said, I got to play with this guy. That was a year earlier. So Billy said, who? And I said, Dennis Chambers. He goes, oh my God, I just saw Dennis Chambers in the Buddy Rich playoff big band video at the dance club with Dave Weckl and Caliuta and all these different guys. And so we agreed. I had no contact into him, but Chick did. He'd never played with Chick, but Ron Moss had a contact. We called him up, and that's when I found out that Dennis Chambers doesn't read a note, and I couldn't believe it. But
Wow.
luckily, I had my own Logic recording studio, and I could do demos. So I did demos, and I sent him 3 tunes, and he loved it. He said, yeah, and so he learned all the tunes, and we flew him out and did the first record at Mad Hatter, and Chick signed it.
Wow.
And rest his soul too. God, we just lost an icon, you know?
I know that was a big loss for a lot of people, you know?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Talk about prolific.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah. Just tied in to, I don't know how else to say this, but tied into humanity, you know? Really tied in, you know, connected. Yeah.
He was a very
cool
connected.
guy.
He wasn't an esoteric, just played crazy stuff. He had so many different projects and all of them communicated, you know?
Yeah. Such a cool guy. Remember his mother? Did you ever meet his mom?
Oh yeah, Anna.
She was so cute.
He wrote a tango for Anna or something too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really good song.
Yeah. And I also played with both his kids. I mean, you know, Aliana and Thad, you know, played with them, and they're adorable. In fact, when Chick passed, I sent Thad a picture of, I guess whomever sent it to me. I don't remember which one of them sent it to me, but it was Chick and Thad and Miles, just, you know, a casual hang, smiling picture, you know. It was really great. Thad must have been, I don't know, maybe he was under 20. I don't know.
That's how I met Miles at the Long Beach Jazz Concert. Went backstage to say hi to Chick, and we were right outside Miles's trailer, and Chick says, hey man, you want to meet Miles? I said, yeah. Knocked on the door, and he opens the door, and he, you know, Miles could dress. He had this red leather and all this stuff on. And Chick said, hey man, break a leg. There's a good crowd out there. Chick had already played, and I think Miles was headlining. And he says, hey, I want you to meet another great player and composer, John Novello, a good friend of mine. And he goes to Chick, he goes, Chicky, if you say he's good, okay, I'll shake his hand. It was really, really kind of neat, you know.
I just had a funny little aside story. So one of Billy Sheehan's roadies was a bass player, and he came to me for lessons. And
Huh.
he was I forget his name. He was one of my most interesting students ever. When he first came to me, he couldn't match a pitch at
Mhm.
all, and he had a range of 4 notes. And he had started playing and singing his own material, which, even though it was, it was metal or heavy metal, I really liked the songs. Like, seriously, liked the songs. They had substance. Anyway, so when he would play, he had no idea that he needed a monitor to hear himself.
Oh.
So all that. So then what would happen is he would come, we would record the lesson, he would go away for a month, he would come back, he would play the old lesson and sing with it to show me what he had been doing. Then we would have a new one. So every month that happened. And in a year, he was my best student.
That's amazing evolution.
Yeah. He was an interesting guy. I dug him a lot because he did the work, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was great. And just, when students really do the work and get it, that's like the
Well,
big prize.
it makes you feel good as a teacher.
Yeah.
That reminds me of a Keith Jarrett story. Keith Jarrett was being interviewed in Keyboard Mag when Keyboard Mag was, to me, a real magazine, and they interviewed real people instead of just putting equipment on the front cover. And they had a great interview with Keith, who I met through Chick as well. And the interviewer made the following mistake. He said, it was halfway in the interview, and they printed this. I kudos for them printing this, because I thought they might have deleted it. So this guy asked Keith, he goes, "Hey Keith, your Cologne concerts were unbelievable, that solo piano record he did in Germany on ICM."
Yeah.
He said, "How's it feel to be such a genius to be able to do that?" Kind of a goofy question. So Keith gets mad. This is in print. He goes, "What? What kind of a question is that?" He said, "When you do that, you're doing a disfavor to everybody reading this and all upcoming musicians. Your question should have been, wow, what a great record. How much work did you do to do that?" He goes, "That's the question. Then I could tell you a lot of work. I practiced, and I thought that was such a nice didactic moment that Keith let out by correcting the guy. Because otherwise it's just kind of like, yeah, well, God gave me that and I'm a genius, and forget everybody, So it was a wonderful teaching moment, I thought,
Yeah, that's great. What really blew my mind about Keith? I mean, of course, who hasn't been listening to him for years and years if you're into jazz? But like, I don't know how long ago, 10 years ago maybe, I was in Japan, and I went to a concert I think it was the last concert with the trio, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, because he had a stroke and now he's disabled completely.
Yeah, so it must have been about 10 years ago, I'm guessing. So anyway, totally friggin' blew my mind. So I started realizing that on his solos, he was doing the whole entire solo. He would do a motif 3 times, take the last line, make it a new motif, and so on. The whole entire solo. And I just got so friggin' blown away by how artful it was and how much time he had to put in to become artful at that. It totally blew my mind.
Yeah, he's one of those few pianists that is melodic even when he's blowing fast stuff.
Yeah.
So melodic, and he sings everything.
Right.
Reminds me of the Madame Shaloff story. Remember her?
Yeah.
Berkeley. She taught various people. When I was studying with Benakis, I says, "Hey, did you ever hear of Madame Shaloff?" He goes, "Yeah, she's a bit of a mystic, but she's imparted some of her things to several people." And I called Chick up, and Chick said he had a couple lessons with her.
Yeah.
Keith did, Steve Kuhn did. And then she taught all kinds of famous, even classical people. So I called her up, and she had an apartment on Marlborough Street, not far from where my pad was. I called her up on the phone, and she definitely was a bit of a mystic. She answered the phone, and I said, Madam Shaloff, and she goes, whoever this is, you need to see me right away. She was like reading the tea leaves, because she was a mystic. And I said, well, that's why I'm calling. Because I have a lesson in 3 hours. Come on over. And she gave me the time. So I walked in the door, and she's got Jesus, and she's in the past life. She's a total mystic, everything. And heart on the wall, very cathedral-like church-type environment, evangelistic. So I get through all that, and I get to her Steinway piano. Normally people, when you start, they want you to play something.
Yeah.
So they get a feel. So she goes, play something. So I started to play a jazz standard or something. I got about 10 notes into it. If it was Autumn Leaves, it would have been like, she goes, stop. And I was startled. And I said, what happened? She goes, boy, I knew you needed me. She goes, do you realize you're not really playing the piano? The piano's playing you. And what am I going to say to that, right? So she goes, here's our first exercise. She walks up to me, has put my hand on the first 5 notes in a position, but doesn't want me to play it, put my hand on it. She goes, okay, with your second finger, I want you to hit the D, but when you hit the D, I want you to breathe and go, She wanted to hook my breath up totally to the instrument, so I wasn't playing so mechanically. That was the end all goal. I didn't get it at the time, and she kept making, for 3 lessons, I wasn't allowed to play. Every time I came in, I was playing notes and hooking it up to my breath. And I guess after I talked with Chick and a few people, that was one of her things. She wanted you to get habitually into hooking up your voice so you'd be musical instead of just playing, because obviously you can play the piano mechanically and still sound good, but is it really musical and melodical? And if you hook it up to your voice, it's a different thing. So then I started every night in the zone when I was playing the B3, I was scatting everything. And she goes, it doesn't matter if you're out of tune and you're not a singer, just hook your breath up. So I only took these 3 lessons. I never got to play for her, but it was one of the 3 most, again, amazing lessons of my life to hook up the soul to the instrument. Whereas a vocalist has to do that, or a wind instrument, you guys have to do that. You can't play.
Well, you know what? Not necessarily. And that's something that to me is always challenging, to always be in this frame with a focus of communication, because, a lot of times, especially singers, it's like, lots of times it's easy to watch yourself instead of give yourself,
Right.
So yeah, it's really hard. I think it was Carl Schroeder maybe, but Carl took from her too. Somebody told me the story that they only were allowed to play 1 note for like 6 months with her, and then finally just quit.
Well, I did it 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I had a lesson every other week, and I quit.
You did.
Yeah, because
maybe it was you who told me that story.
Yeah, I quit after the 3rd lesson, and I told Chick, and Chick used to laugh. He goes, I didn't want to say anything to you. Chick only took 1. He said, but she does have a thing there.
Yeah.
About hooking your voice up.
Yeah.
Even if you're only doing it mentally, you still should be melodically hooking up your scat, whether it's, whether you're doing it out loud or, because if you watch Chick play, he blows and you can see his lips going. He's doing that, but if you're right next to him, you don't hear his voice. But if you're with Keith, he's scatting. He's like, he's doing that. And
Definitely.
Oscar Peterson does like a groan.
Yeah.
He doesn't really individualize each note, but he's just like going, he's doing, sort of
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all the greatest guys that were ever mentors for me,
Yeah.
I saw that they did that somehow in their own
Yeah.
way. They all did.
Absolutely. Wasn't there one of the famous older straight ahead players? I can't remember.
Phineas,
Huh?
Phineas Newborn.
No, it was somebody else. But one time I was on the road in Austria, and this guy and his dad were in the audience, and they laid a joke on me. I didn't get that it was a joke first, but as soon as they kind of said it and it sunk in, they said, "Oh, Errol Gardner." They
Earl
said,
Gardner, same thing,
"They
yeah.
said, oh yeah, my dad's the voice of Errol Gardner."
The voice.
And I was like, and then I got it. It was, and then he said, "Yeah, I've done Keith Jarrett." It's like,
Funny.
right, okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Let's talk about your authorship, because this is exciting. Since we spoke yesterday, and I didn't realize that you had gone into this direction, which is really, it's exciting. I think it's because it's an expression of yourself, continuing but expanding, and it's great.
Yeah, well, the first 3 books I wrote were music educational books out of necessity, but
Yeah.
in one of the big ones, the contemporary keyboards, I did get into some mindset principles because as I taught, and I'm sure you experienced this, when you're teaching students one-on-one, it isn't just the techniques and the things you're teaching them. A lot of students just don't do the work. And the reason they don't do the work is they don't have the correct mindset and the discipline and all these different things because, you're by yourself.
Yeah.
You gotta do this. It's not like you have a job. And even though they pay you $50 or $100, they still got to go home, push themselves to sit in front of the piano or do the exercises. And if things are moving too slow, they get frustrated and things like that. So I always was in the mindset out of necessity for my own benefit. And then when I started teaching, I would impart that. So I had all these notes and everything. And when my first wife, Gloria, passed away, it was very devastating. We fought cancer for 2 years and then she had to leave this world. And I wrote a book called The Song That Never Ended because I started having what they call it in the industry after death communications, and they were real. And I even hired a couple mediums to prove it was real that were scientifically done, so they couldn't have done any research on me. And I won't belabor that point, but that was my first book out of the field of music because that got into spiritual development and after death communications, of which I didn't even know there was a whole industry of authors that was just amazing, scientific people and philosophers and all kinds of stuff. So that was exciting. And then I'm back into the music world and recovered. And I met my current wife, who unfortunately just passed away about 7 or 8 weeks ago, and we were together 20 years. And while about 2.5 years ago, when we were still living in LA, I got the idea one day that I need to write a literally pure mindset, personal development kind of book.
Yeah.
So I wrote all these outlines down. Took me 3 months to do the outline. I started writing it. And I couldn't get away from the fact that the shape of the world was so bad because it seemed like we lost our way from God, from our inner power, our ethics and our source. As a matter of fact, there's a quote here that I put in my book. Remember the book, The Philistine Prophecy?
Mm-hmm.
By James Redman. It was a pretty amazing book. And
yep. It's on my bookshelf.
yeah, and there was this quote in there where that's in my book. The name of my book is called The Invisible Architect, How to Develop Your Life from Within. And so if you go to biblical times, it talks about the kingdom of God is within, and in your heart, what you will receive what's in your heart. So our power is within because our thoughts and beliefs are senior to what reality we want to create.
Yeah.
And a lot of people know that, but they don't apply it in their life. And I looked around, I said, we're disconnecting ourselves from our spiritual roots. And that's why the corruption and the greed and everything is happening. We got to change that. And so in his book, The Philistine Prophecy, James Redfield, the author, states the following, I quote, "We have been disconnected from the larger source of dynamic universal energy that sustains us and responds to our expectations. We have cut ourselves off, and therefore we are weak, insecure, and lacking, which leads to all kinds of other problems." And I went, that's true. If you don't have the mindset together, and if you don't feel hooked up, then all kinds of manners of difficulties, in my opinion, happen. And I remember practicing Bach is one of my favorite things. I think Bach is the highest frequency music I've ever listened to or had to play. And if you look at all of Bach's manuscripts and any writings about him, he dedicated everything to God. All his music is dedicated to adore and glorification of God. And if you take a look at it, you can play his music upside down, backwards. He's still the most covered composer 250 years later. And it's just astounding. And so I realized that if you took all that together, so I wanted to write a book that not only had mindset principles that could help people get command of their thoughts so they can create the realities that they want, but I wanted to hook them back up spiritually without getting into any organized religions. So that's why I came up with a new name. I didn't want to call God or Jesus or Yahweh or any of the normal names for God. So I one day was sitting there kind of praying for this name. And I thought, Jesus, I already had my subtitle, How to Design Your Life from Within. And the keyword design popped out to me. And I went, design, architects design stuff. And God is invisible, the invisible architect. And it just hit me. It's like God gave me his name, the new name. Right. I had this little religious experience. And the moment I got the name, I thought of one other thing. And I went, God's always known to be perfect, all knowing, all perfect, all loving, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So then I changed the subtitle, The Invisible Architect, How to Design Your Perfect Life from Within. Because if you don't seek perfection, you can't even get close to perfection. So everybody has imperfect parts of their life. Doesn't matter whether it's relationship or health or money or whatever. And so I wanted to write this book that was timeless and generic that anybody could read. I don't care if they were a billionaire or if they were a student in college or somebody had problems with their dog, didn't matter. They could read this book, and the principles of the book would help them take a look at the imperfections in their life, hook up with the invisible architect, and apply some of these principles that I've learned over the years. And so I finished it 2.5 years, and Barb and I, my wife that just passed, which is still hard for me to even say, it's only been 8 weeks, moved here, and I released it. No, wait a minute, today, I released it this year in May, and it became an Amazon bestseller in like 6 or 7 days, and now I'm kind of promoting that. And part of my twilight years, besides doing various musical projects, I'm very excited about helping people one-on-one, mentor them if they're interested after they read the book. And if it resonates with them, I will help them use the principles in this book. Instead of it do it yourself, they could contact me and I could be a mentor with them. So it's an exciting new thing that I never, ever, ever, even to this day, thought that I would be doing. It's crazy.
I'm pleasantly surprised that you went into this direction, but I'm not totally surprised because that first book was so, I always thought it was so definitive and helpful. And I always felt like the intentions behind that book was to really lay it out to help people, and so.
The keyboard book?
Yeah.
Yeah, the big keyboard. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's part of who I know you to be. But I mean, also, I'm pleasantly surprised that this is where it's gone too.
Well, I think it's really, I don't want to sound woo-woo, but I really do think it's divinely inspired because It wasn't anything that I went, all right, I'm going to write a mindset book. Let me do an outline and blah, 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 blah. The world needs this. No.
Yeah.
It was me sitting around and voices in my head kind of going, hey, pay attention. And in the book, I even discuss how at an early age, I always felt hooked up.
Yeah.
Felt blessed. I remember one day I was with Chick at 4 a.m. at his studio in LA. And I played on this one record. He wanted me to play synth and keys so live in the studio so he could play piano. Normally he would do his own overdubs, but he wanted it to be interactive. So I'd go over to his house every night and he'd take his charts and I would play the keyboard part that he would overdub, whatever it was. And again, what an amazing lesson that was, just to work and brush elbows with him. Wasn't a lesson, but it ended up being an amazing experience. And one day I said, Chick, man, you are so prolific and so amazing. Do you recall how that happened? He again said, it was a lot of work, but he backed up. He goes, John, I don't know. And I don't really question it. He says, but I've just been blessed. That's all I can say. I've been blessed. I've been blessed since I was 3 years old. And I just acknowledge that and follow that. So he operates with the invisible architect. And all these people that I've ever run into, I've never run into a great musician / composer that doesn't have some kind of spirituality in their own way, hooked up to their music. I haven't run into it yet, you know?
Yeah. I want to actually share that your website, which is
JohnNovelloAuthor.com.
Yeah, that's what this page is.
And there's the book if you scroll down a little bit.
Yep. Great cover.
Yeah, that was sort of cyclically inspired too, because I was trying to come up with a cover that kind of esoterically, but clearly, if you look at it, had something to do with the inner energy that we should hook up to it. And one day I was scrolling around with all kinds of different artwork that you could buy and rent or pay for. And that picture came up of this silhouette. And then I added the galaxy in there to show energy. And everybody that I surveyed went, oh my God, that's so great. So that's how that cover came about.
Very nice cover. And I'm guessing this is a trailer. Do you mind if we watch this?
Yeah, it's only a minute long. Go ahead. It's really cool.
What would it mean if your perfect life was already achieved and simply awaiting your discovery? What if you knew the exact process that would allow you to discover and achieve this perfect life? And what if you had an invisible architect, an all-powerful, all-knowing inner power and best friend at your beck and call to not only help you discover, but also design and achieve your perfect life using 3 easy steps? Learn the secret process and end your personal Groundhog Day now. The Invisible Architect by John Novello. Audiobook. Produced by E-Audio Productions. Narrated by Lee Gettle. Available on your favorite audiobook store.
Wow, and I guess you did the music.
Yes. Couldn't hire any, being a musician and composer, if I would have hired somebody, that wouldn't have looked good.
What did it say? Your personal Groundhog Day? Is that what it said? Something
Right.
like-
In other words, if you remember Groundhog Day, the whole idea was to teach Bill Murray a lesson because he was such a snob, narcissistic a-hole.
Right.
And so he got up and then, ended up back and over again. And finally he figured out that
It was a
I
lesson.
better change something here or I'm going to be stuck. And so that's why I had, end your personal. You probably all have things that keep repeating that we want to change. So if you want to end your personal Groundhog Day, get the book.
That's great.
Yeah, that's a great movie. That was a great movie.
Yeah, I know that really was a great
I
movie.
could watch that movie over and over again, even though I know what's coming,
Me too. I love that movie. He becomes such a mensch.
They cast him perfectly for that part. That's for
They
sure.
did. They
Yeah.
did. Um, so now, I'm just curious if you're yet thinking. I mean, you just came out with the book, basically, right?
Yeah, I haven't done a major promotion yet. I'm about ready to get into the publicity marketing full campaign. All I did initially was a small Amazon campaign because I wanted to get it on Amazon. And then I produced it in 4 versions. You can do it ebook, Kindle, paperback, hardcover, or now audiobook. And the guy that I picked to narrate it is just brilliant. He's got a great broadcasting voice. And I had a guy that really wanted to read the book, but he really wasn't a good reader. He
Yeah.
said he always fell asleep and everything. So he got the audiobook and he got through it. He goes, "Oh my God, what a difference listening to the audiobook. It captured me. I didn't fall asleep. I put it on my iPhone and I was driving in the car and listened to it." So the audiobook, I think, is going to be pretty popular for that reason.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, that's really an interesting point right now. I mean, I love to listen to stuff, although, my days are full with various things, including practicing. Like when I get in the car, I usually practice, but
Right.
sometimes I listen to, who I listen to? Alan Alda's podcast. Have you ever heard
I
that?
never heard that. What's it about?
It's great. It's called Clear and Vivid. He interviews some actors, but a lot of scientists. He's really into science. And
Wow.
yeah, it's great. I have to say, it's just, Alan Alda is one of those guys you love, like James Taylor, Alan Alda,
Right.
and it's just really it's cool.
Yeah, I have
It's
to figure
really-
out how to do that. I want to start a podcast.
Oh.
I haven't figured out how to do it yet, but I think it would be very cool. And every time I do one, I would just take various aspects of life in my book and intertwine them with stories and
Yeah, it's great.
maybe even play a couple things, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. Podcast. I mean, there's so many great stuff happening. I have another friend I don't know if you know her. She's like an awesome stride player, Judy Carmichael.
I heard of Carmichael, but I don't think I know her.
She's really a great stride player. Anyway, she's had a podcast on that is an NPR related podcast for the last 20 years. And she interviews musicians and actors, and she has some great conversations with great people. It's fun.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to get a marketing publicity firm and have them try to get me on all these types of things for that. And then I myself have to find a platform that I can start my own podcast,
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of different platforms, so I don't know where to begin. I'll have to see.
Yeah. Well, what's fun is, it's just great doing it and putting yourself out there. And I mean, of course, you want to expand, and it's great to hire people to help. But there's not a necessity to reach something. It's just the doingness part of it. It's just great, and you're
Put
reaching.
it out there and let the universe do its thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you still teaching these days?
No, I quit teaching actually about a year before I left LA, except I did have a couple. My doctor is a great student, and when I told him I was quitting, he didn't want that to happen. So he would come over to the house every 4 or 5 weeks and have a lesson. And then there was somebody else who was a really good student. But other than those 2 students, it's not that I got fried. It just felt like I needed to move on.
Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, I totally get that.
Plus, I got to tell you, and I don't know if you've experienced it, but
Yeah.
it seemed like with the advent of the whole technological thing and the whole degradation of music, don't get me on that high horse. It seemed like the quality of students, the people that wanted to really learn that I enjoyed teaching weren't around anymore. Everybody was too much of a quick fix kind of person. And every once in a while, I found somebody that really wanted to do it. And that made me excited, but they were coming to me far and few in between, where in 1983 and 4, when I started teaching, it was a whole different scenario,
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that or not.
Yeah, I definitely did. So let's see. before I was married to my second husband. Remember Gus, my first?
Yeah.
So he and I split up in 79, and then oh, sorry, we got married in 79, and then we split up in 90, I don't know, something 96 or 7. And then so I started workshops in my house. Sometimes I had two workshops or 3 workshops a weekend. And it wasn't just me teaching them. It was visiting artists. I had all kind, and there were like a good amount of students was 25, right? 25 students in a workshop. And I was doing it, I did that for like 16 years. And then, like you said, the technology and the web and everything got kind of diffused. And like students used to come to almost all the workshops. So you could really see you could learn a lot of great information because there was all these different teachers teaching. And so then, and then actually I changed my website in recent years to reflect more of my spiritual nature, because that's what I think. I mean, I think I'm a good teacher technically and, information wise, but I also think that I've noticed that I can really give people something if they're connected with me on kind of a spiritual nature. That's what I wanted. So now my website reflects that. And when people call me through my website, I know that they are on that.
That's exactly what we're tracking, and the same thing. That's exactly what happened to me. And I wouldn't be true to myself if I didn't pursue that angle of it. Hence, that's why this book is potentially a new career, because in all my music lessons, I can't tell you, I'd have hour lessons. Sometimes the student come in and, wham about this and that, and 40 minutes of the lesson ended up spiritual / mindset stuff, and then back to reality. And they always were blown away and thanked me. Sometimes I feel like they're going to get mad at me because I'm on a high horse, but they weren't. As a matter of fact, they were more excited about what I imparted to them and the two-way communication that went on. That was more important to them than just learning a technical thing or a chord substitution. In the end, I realized that was true, because one day I was with Chick, and who comps better than Chick? His rhythmic prowess and voicings are amazing.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're so amazing, they distract the singer. I remember one time he was backing up Nancy Wilson at a place in town, and it was Chick, Roy Haynes, and Miroslav, and the feature was Nancy. And now Chick came out and did 2 tunes with the band, and then he invited her, the announcer, Nancy Wilson. She was one of my favorite singers. So she came out, and she said, isn't Chick Corea Trio, blah, 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 right? And then finally she goes, well, I'm going to do one of my favorite songs, Autumn Leaves. So then she looks over at Chick, and Chick did the 32 bar thing out front, and he went so out that she didn't know where the top was. So she went to come in and she couldn't figure it out. So Chick looked at her kind of like, well, you blew it, babe, so I guess I'm going to have to go around again. So he went around again, and I must admit, he wasn't kind. He rolled his eyes. I don't think he should have done that, but he went around again. But then when he got near the top, he played almost a C spot run 2-5-1 and put his hands up so she would come in. But she got him back. So she goes, the autumn, and she goes, ladies, and then she didn't keep singing. She started it, and she goes, ladies and gentlemen, the incredible, the awesome Victoria Trio. Kind of like beating them up, sarcastically. And then she came in and killed it. But the point of the original, my original line was, he comped so good. So one day when we were just chilling, I said, Chick, I don't want to know exact voicings and tensions. I got that, I think, pretty nailed. But I want to know what your concept is, because I listen to a lot of different players in a company, and I can name you, and they're all brilliant, but you've got something going on that's so totally free and unique. I just want to know if you have a a template in your mind or a concept or a mindset. He goes, it's funny you should say that. He goes, because you know how that happened? Because I was studying all these chord substitutions and voices and with the 13 on top, and I do them in every key. And then I would do this and I would try. Because I was mad at myself because I kept sounding like everybody else that I heard. And that's okay, but I'm not that type of guy. He said, so one day I sat down and I started comping, and I realized that, hey, the top note is your pinky and the bottom note is your pinky, and everything in between, just fill it in. He goes, that's my concept. So I just started thinking melodically with my pinky on the bottom, which not necessarily has to be the root, and my pinky on the top is the melody. So if I was in a comp, I would just play the melody and grab almost anything in between until I got adept at it. And that blew me away because that's a concept. Because that totally freed me from the tyranny of what are the right chords and voices. Because it just got me free. He goes, now I don't recommend doing it if you don't have so much you have to have a vocabulary chordal command before you do that. But that brought me to the next level. And that was a great lesson,
That's amazing. That's great. Well, that must have been the basis for that funny version of him and Bobby McFerrin of Autumn Leaves. Have you ever heard that?
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, I know. Their interacting is incredible.
Two geniuses, but it's just so funny. And my piano player, Chicoria. It's funny and it's just musically mind-blowing.
Oh yeah, I've never heard anybody with his Bobby I'm talking about now, his pitch and range and command of not only his voice, but of melody and rhythm and chordal harmony I've never heard a singer that astounding to me.
Oh,
he's great singers, don't get me wrong, but
he's a king.
Yeah.
Genius. Last year I saw a video with him in the Yellow Jackets that was also equally astounding. It was like
I love Russell Franke. He's a great taste.
Oh God, recently I should send you a link to this. In fact, I'll write it down because it's so beautiful. Russell, for the first time in a long time, had a trio perform at Sam First, which is a new club near LAX, a small club, and it's just a trio: Steve Schaefer and Mike Valerio. John, it is so fucking gorgeous. Oh my God, I'm gonna send it to you because it's on YouTube. It's
blowing jazz, more jazz.
Oh yeah, and it's like some of his compositions and acoustic. It's just gorgeous. I'll send you the link.
Yeah, I heard a track one day and I didn't know who it was because it was some obscure tune by the Yellow Jackets, but it was really it bordered on fusion, but it was pretty straight ahead. And I couldn't tell who it was. And then when they announced it, I went, oh man, I never heard Russell do that kind of stuff. He's amazing. He really is.
Yeah, kind of reminded me of a little bit anyway of, when he was just a regular piano player here years ago.
Right.
And that's one reason I loved him, because his rhythm sense was amazing and his harmonic sense was really different and interesting. And it brought in, probably like you, brought in some of the R&B grooves and concepts, but he was still a jazz player. And it was fun way back then,
Yeah.
So yeah, and he's such a sweetheart too. He's so kind. And
yeah, I haven't seen him in a while. Is he still out there playing everything?
Yeah, a lot. And he's teaching at USC.
Oh, good.
Yeah. He's still married to the same girl. Woman, whatever.
Whatever. At this stage, yes.
So you said you think it might be kind of a new career. Does that includes kind of more counseling type of things?
Well, I envision myself, I'm still always going to be a musician and composer and do projects, of course, but there's a whole industry out there. Some people call it success coaching, life coaching.
Yeah.
I'm naming mine Elite Mentoring
Yeah.
because I wanted to have a different name. And this publicist that I've been talking to said, since you're not, a young snapper anymore, you may want to get into what we call the luxury offer success coaching, meaning you're coaching people that are powerhouses. They could be billionaires, CEOs of companies, athletes, people that have already done something, and financially they're really on top, but they have just as many problems as people who are struggling, and sometimes even more so. And they can actually appreciate an elite approach to handling them, because they don't want to be in cattle call territory. They want to be pampered. They want to meet at a sauna, at a hotel. They want to have luxury pampering and one-on-one mentoring. So this marketing company that specializes in that kind of excites me. And she was showing me the potential of it. Hey, you could have just 4 or 5 clients in a year and be making a lot of money, and feel, these people fly you to their city, or they fly in, and you do this and you do that. And it's, be like, if you're a sideman and you're going out on tour, there's different levels of tour. But if you were the keyboard player for the Rolling Stones, now you're making 20 grand a week, and you're on a red carpet tour. That's the difference. So that's my approach to this. Now we'll see if it happens or not, but I'm kind of excited about that one-on-one mentoring to high net worth people. That's going to be the niche that I'm going after. And it doesn't mean I won't do networking. I mean, mentoring anybody. It just means that's going to be the focus.
Yeah, that's cool.
And still do music, of course. And I can envision, coming on a TV show, since I already have this other background where somebody goes, hey, musician, composer, author, got a new book out and blah, blah, blah. And then I talk about the book, but I could also play and do something, And so there's many ways to incorporate all my different hats in this one hat. Yeah. That's what I'm in the middle of kind of doing right now. Yeah.
That sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Hey, my friend Dan Davila listed a YouTube on you playing at Catalina around midnight. Do you mind watching this?
No, fine. Yeah, I think I remember that. I think that was with Reggie Hamilton and who was the drummer? Jerry Brown, I think. Yeah, there it is. Reggie and Jerry. Two of my favorite players.
Huh. Cool. Oh yeah, Reggie Hamilton. He's
great.
Ridiculously good.
He's one of the few guys that plays incredible electric and really good upright too.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with Jerry Brown, actually.
Jerry's been around. Jerry played with Chick Corea for years. And
oh.
Diana Ross and all these R&B bands. And yeah, he plays with a lot of people, and he's a great drummer. He knows how to breathe too. Like, he's not one of those guys that once you get a groove going, all he does is do the groove. He breathes with the piano. In this setup, he kind of breathes and stops, and it's amazing.
Wow. Okay. That is really beautiful. And it just reminds me, it's such a joy to hear people play. I don't mean against, but against each other. Everybody's doing their own thing and it's sitting in this magical space. And it's a life lesson. It's everything, it's just, there's these, everybody's uniquely themselves and working together, and it has a life.
Yeah, exactly. I call that the non-ego performance.
Yeah.
And that happens. It's amazing. The band takes on its own ego and still allows each individual to express themselves, but not at the expense of blowing the magic.
Exactly.
It's a tough lesson to learn, and I think it's just a lot of hours of listening and being sensitive, and plus there's no way around about our earlier theme. There's spirituality connected with this kind of stuff. You just can't be mechanical and have stuff going on in your brain that's not spiritual. You just can't get to that level,
Yeah.
When I hear performances that get to that level, I go, oh my God, and it doesn't have anything to do with chops. It could be somebody that hardly even, like Zawinul, when he plays, he hardly shows his chops, but he shows his chops in a different way. But I was at his house once. I interviewed him for my book, The Contemporary Keyboardist, and it never made it because of some strange things. But while I was there, he had this Steinway in his house, and he was off on his high horse. He can be very opinionated about various other bands.
Yeah.
And he goes, if it doesn't breathe, it's not spiritual. And I said, well, yeah, your Weather Report is such a minimalistic band, but it's so amazing because of all these melodies and spirituality. And he goes, some people think that I can't play sometimes. And he goes and sits down at the piano. He goes, you want to hear Tatum? And he blows Tatum. You want to hear Peterson? You want to hear Garner? And he goes through this history of solo piano jazz, about 8 of my favorite mentors, and just slayed the dragon. He goes, but that doesn't get me off. Because I studied that. But and then I brought up the point of, what's the tune? I said, where did you come up? I said, that song has got 5 themes and every theme goes together, and then it finally ends up with the killer pop theme of all times. Ba-da-ba-ba. I said, that is the most amazing song I've ever heard in my life, and it was #1. How did you do that? It's like Bobby McFerrin did the same thing with Don't Worry, Be Happy. And he didn't even like that song.
Yeah, I know.
He mentioned several times he was furious that it became a hit. But
Yeah.
if you listen to that tune, that's just not a simple tune. What he's doing in that tune vocally is amazing, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Well, John, it's been 2 hours, and thank you so much for your time. And this was so much fun to hang out and, find out a little more details and just hang out with you. And, it's been a long, long time.
but stay in touch, and I can't believe 2 hours went by so quick. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I had sent a message to Cowger, but he said that you had called him last night. So that's so cool. I'm glad
Yeah,
you.
he actually called me back.
Yeah.
Boy, he's been through some stuff. He started telling me some of it. I had to. Luckily, my daughter called, Barb's daughter, and I said, "Hey, I got to run because I think we'd still be talking."
I believe
But I
it.
don't think he can go out or do anything, so we'll see what happens. Well, it's great to hook up with him again.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, enjoy Nashville, and let's stay connected. And thank you again. I really appreciate you being
Yeah, let
on.
me know if you ever come into town, and I'll do the same thing if I come out.
I probably will come into town because I'm going to visit my friends who I really should hook you up with. Bob McChesney and Calabria Foti, because they're very talented people, and he's making a studio. So
What do they do? Play.
Bob is one of the premier trombone players,
Oh, wow.
and Calabria is an incredible violinist and beautiful, warm vocalist. Like, her sound is like velvet.
And Calabria is Italian, and Calabrese, my father was Calabrese. Calabria.
She is from an Italian family from New York.
So is this going to be on?
Yes.
You recorded this, so this gets on your link, or how do I watch it?
Well, it's been on
Live.
live Facebook and my YouTube channel.
Okay. Well, send me any links.
Yes, I will.
I'll promote it then too.
Yeah, we'll be archived too, so anybody can actually see the archive too.
Sounds like you're dying over there.
Sorry, I have a chronic cough, and I never know when it's coming up.
Well, I had one for a while, and we're not being taped anymore, right?
We're still on tape,
Yeah,
but I can get off, but yes, we are on tape.
Well, this might be helpful to people. So I had the allergy that started a couple years ago in LA, and I never had them before. And the post-nasal drip was out of control. And that's what was causing my cough. I had x-rays to make sure it wasn't anything else. And I got to Nashville a year ago, and it got even worse because Nashville's all green and lush and pollens. It's like heaven here compared to, there's no desert. It's just gorgeous green and everything, right? But that means more trees, more flowers, more. It was getting worse. And I was coughing so much all day long, I couldn't even go out. People thought I had COVID, and my stomach was hurting from my muscles. And I'd get these attacks at a restaurant. And I was at this high-end restaurant, and a friend of this guy that I was with, in fact, he's the owner of Avalon Design I hooked up with, which is that great mic preamp EQ company. He moved his company here. We went out to an Italian dinner because I told him about this Italian place. And his sidekick, I told him, he goes, "You got to hook up with my buddy who owns 4 beehives outside of Nashville. And the word is, if you eat
Honey
local."
from the local area. Yep.
And I said, "I heard about that. Is that true? Or is it a BS?" He goes, "A lot of people have had success." And I love honey, and I have raw organic honey anyway, but it wasn't local. So I met this guy at this restaurant, bought 4 bottles of it. It's now the 6th week. It's totally gone. I cannot.
Really?
It's gone. And that happened gradiently. The first week and a half, I didn't notice any different. And the second week, I maybe noticed that I wasn't coughing maybe as much. So because I was taking antihistamines every day, do nasal irrigation, everything.
Yeah.
Nothing was final. Now I'm hardly coughing at all. It's like a miracle. Thanks to the bees.
I'm just curious how much. I mean, I've had this cough for 20 years, so I've done Eastern, Western, everything in between. But how much honey do you ingest every day?
I do a minimum of about 3 tablespoons.
3?
3 tablespoons.
Oh.
But right before I go to bed, I do a tablespoon. I get up in the morning, I do a tablespoon. Then during the day, I do a tablespoon. But then there's probably a little more honey here and there because when I drink tea, I put honey in it.
Yeah.
But I've been using exclusively his raw organic honey. I have other raw organic honey that's delicious too, but it's not local. So
Yeah.
I figure I don't want to go back to this thing at all. And I haven't had any histamine now 2.5 weeks. And I hated that because it used to dry me out and all these little things, you know. And I've only done one nasal irrigation. I have this Garrison one that's a pulsator sinus irrigation, and, you know, stand over the sink and it pulsates warm water.
Yeah.
And once I do that, that stops my post-nasal drip for about 45 minutes to an hour and a half, but then it comes back.
Yeah.
And, but now this honey thing, I think it's almost like a vaccine. It desensitized to the pollen because of the bees, because that's the only explanation that I've had, and it works, you know?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for reminding me, because I mean, that was one thing along the way. I can't tell you how many things I've tried, but anyway, that's good. I'm gonna
Find some local honey, I guess, you know?
Yeah.
Raw organic honey, I'm sure there's got to be some in LA, you know?
Oh yeah, very close to me, because I'm close to Simi Valley area, you know, and
Right.
there's a lot of farms in that area, you know,
Yeah.
that sell local honey. So I'm going to do that. Thank you. I'll just tell people that tomorrow, I usually do live Monday through Wednesday. So tomorrow is one of the most amazing clarinetists I've ever heard, John Tegmeyer. Kind of a younger guy here, and he was like a blue whale, you know, musician, but he's just amazing. So, and he's on tomorrow with me. And then I have my archives with my group Fish to Birds, which is
Mhm.
an a cappella improv vocal group.
Oh, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, it's a really fun group. And then David Bassi on Friday, who's a singer and a jazz DJ.
So is
And
this
then-
the same link you sent me every time? Or
Yeah,
no?
yeah.
Or-
Well, oh no, it's on Facebook. So you would go to Facebook at noon, and you'd see every day I post either archived or live.
So this is done, how is this and why is this done through Zoom then rather than Facebook?
Well, you and I are doing Zoom,
I
and
see.
then from my Zoom, I hook up to Facebook and YouTube.
How do you do that? Well,
Through-
we can talk later about that.
Yeah, I use Restream.
Okay, let's talk later about that because I might want to.
Yeah, I'm just and then Saturday, Sandy White, singer from Australia, and Sunday, Larry Livingston, who's a world-renowned conductor, and he's been the dean of USC and on and on.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the week. So, John, you and I are going to talk, and I want to talk about publishing. So I'll be calling you
we
this
can
week.
talk about that for sure. All
Yeah.
right, take care, Kathy. Have a
Thank
great
you
week.
so much.
All right,
Thanks.
see everybody.
you.
Bye.